That was The Plane 2 by Ryan Pollie, aka, or should I say FKA, Los Angeles Police Department. Ryan, that one's a bit out there. Like it's got that weird flangey thing going on. It sounds all nuts. It sounds like some 80s shit, and I love it. I mean, what's the story behind that one?
That's what you just described. At least the story behind that is Jonathan Rado. I mean, that there's no other story. If you're hearing flangy, weird sounds, and the sonics of it, you're like, oh my God, whoa, this is out there and wild and crazy. It sounds like nothing else. That is purely because it was a collaboration with Jonathan Rado, who is an absolute genius.
Jonathan Rado, of course, of Foxygen, right? Is that right? Or was
yes.
he?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I there were a couple. There was this first Foxygen record that came out, and they did it all. It was like this garage band teenage masterpiece, basically, that I heard, and it kind of changed, the way that I was approaching music at the time and what I thought was possible to do in your bedroom. So they were really inspiring to me, and I knew I wanted to work with them. And they kind of inspired me again to kind of rethink about home recording again after working with them, and thinking that maybe I could bring my talents to other projects and work with other musicians and help them kind of bring albums to life. And I've been doing that ever since. So I really have him to thank in a lot of ways. And yeah, so that to me, I listen to that record and I hear the time that I spent collaborating with Jonathan, because the demos come before it, and that's just so far away. So, but yeah, I'd have to listen to what the song was about and stuff. But I'm really glad you enjoy it.
Wait, so with this album, the one from 2017, you didn't record that in your house, right? You went to a studio for that.
That's the only one that I've worked with someone else.
And so, what are some of the pros and cons there? Like, what did you find working in the studio that you really enjoyed? What were you thinking? Oh, I kind of wish this is different than it would have been at home.
Oh, like, zero cons. With working with Jonathan, zero cons. I mean, the only reason why I wouldn't work with Jonathan for the rest of my life is money. And that kind of gets back to, kind of the reason why I'm so good at what I do in recording is because I couldn't afford to work with anybody ever. So I had to get good at it on my own. And I think
let's take Jonathan out of the equation, just in terms of studio versus at home. Like this is the only album you ever did in the studio. Everything else has been at home.
Sure.
Pros and cons there.
I think, yeah, absolutely. I think what I'm thinking is the idea of at home has changed for me significantly. The first Enough Is Enough, the first record that I did, that means at home means one mic, 1/8 inch into a MacBook, and like a couple shitty instruments, and like let her rip, and knowing nothing really about music production. And then years and years of becoming fascinated with music production, wanting to get better, wanting to save myself the money of having to work with a producer, and spending a record advance fully on making my at home now as powerful as a studio, as most studios, but much more of a home environment, which I think is the perfect medium. It's like, I've got the gear where you're going to like what it sounds like, but relax. Like, my cat will be in your lap. The sun will set like through my bay windows, and we'll be at home, and like, you'll feel like you can connect to your songs and not have to watch the clock as it runs out on the millions of dollars you spend on studio time on this Neve board. You know what I mean? So yeah. I think that's the pros of recording at home are purely, well, not purely, but first and foremost were economical reasons, I think, for a lot of us.
It makes sense. It's kind of the same in New York, if you record someone at home in New York, you say, no, please relax, sit on this stool halfway in my kitchen while the neighbors are banging on the roof. It's that kind of thing, right? Will, I don't know. Will, you record at home in New York sometimes, right? No?
Yeah. But I think, kind of like more on the same page of Ryan, where it's like, I mean, I record in my apartment all the time. I'll go to a studio to track drums because I feel like the drum room is the thing that you can't really fake. So I'll go track drums in a studio, and then everything else I'll do either in my very small recording studio that I rent or in my apartment. But it's like the same thing. It's like, if you have like nice enough gear and like you're in a like generally quiet space, like you can get away with a lot of stuff. you know?
Yeah, and I try to, everybody that I work with at my studio, I try to, hopefully give them the same experience that I got working with Jonathan, which is like you have the option of trying to fake it and make it work and be in charge of, and don't let that song stay on your voice memos. Like, do something with it, even if you can't get to the studio. Don't let that stop you. But, a lot of people need help, need a collaborator. I don't feel like I'm that way, where I need a collaborator in order to make records. And I think that comes with a natural thing, but also like a lot of hard work to make sure it could be so. But at the same time, if I had the money, yeah, I would still produce, but hire a bunch of cool people that I'd love to work with. You know what I mean? I think it's just, at the end of the day, I'm glad that I have a studio here, because I don't need to get someone else involved in order to exercise my craft, I guess. Like, I don't need to go to the paint store to pick up more paint. Like, I can just paint.
One thing I will say about this is a very specific New York City qualm. And Will, I think we probably talked about this a bit before, but the reason that it's nice for me to get out of the city to record is because you don't have like day-to-day shit. Like, if someone hits you up about something, you're not like, you don't feel like fuck, I got to get out of the session and go run this errand or do this, or I promised this person I would see them or something. So I like to go up to Providence, Rhode Island, a big, nice studio. Represent. It's a shameless plug. If you're ever on the East Coast, you need to record something. That's the place to go.
I gotta go.
You gotta go, dude. Let's all go. We'll talk about this after the pod.
Okay.
But let's close this one out. This is the closer, and what a fitting track. It's called New York City Song, and it is by Tanya Tucker off of the 1972 album Delta Dawn.